Hi everyone. In this video we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts when it comes to networking, connecting and forming relationships with the admission directors of the business schools that you're planning to apply to. We've had previous videos that have talked about networking, most of them from Bhaskar, who has walked you through the importance of networking, why network and why attend events such as the MBA Tour, about even how it helps you save costs with the application process, because at least some of the business schools at these events will offer an application fee waiver. We've had Bhaskar share student experiences on how they leverage networking to their advantage. So if you have not seen any of those videos, I'm going to link all of them in the description box. So please check out those videos as well on why you have to network, why you have to attend school events, whether it is an individual event conducted by the school or a multi-school networking event such as the MBA Tour. So now we've covered the whys. In this video we're going to talk about the how, right? How do I go about networking and creating a positive impression? There are certain things, sort of like hygiene factors, that you need to keep in mind. Some obvious things that you need to avoid doing in order to ensure you don't create a negative impression. It's only very few people who do certain things who are able to leverage it and use it as an advantage, and that's why we want to go to, right? We don't want to be in the neutral place. We want to move into the positive impression place. So I'm going to give you 5 tips that are going to help you get on that journey to creating a positive impression with the MBA admission directors. Alright, let's get started. The first of our tips, the first of your strategies is a pre-event strategy. This is the one thing we're not going to do as part of the event itself, right? And that is your research on the schools. If we go into the school and we talk with them and we're like, so do you offer a full-time MBA program or a part-time MBA program? So is your program 18 months or 24 months? Those are very obvious questions that you could have looked up on the website itself. It wouldn't have taken you a long time to figure that out before you went to the event, right? So you go to an event and you ask these obvious questions. The AdCom are going to wonder, was this person even interested in our school? Did they just randomly come and attend the event because they have no idea who we are? Doing our research also gives us an arsenal of information from which we can ask interesting questions. And asking interesting questions means that you're going to leave a positive impression. There are lots of resources that are available out there. I'm just going to list a few of them. Start with the school website. That's the most obvious place. For example, you can go to a school's website and you can check out these pages, right? About us. Find out what the school stands for. What are their values? What do they want from the students, right, as part of their application? Now, one of the pillars of USC Marshall, for example, is transformational courage. And I was able to talk about transformational courage as part of my essays, as part of my interviews, because I resonated with that very deeply when I was applying to USC Marshall. I was going through a transformation in my life which required a lot of courage from me, and what was I doing in order to display the transformational courage? That was something I could deeply connect with. And because I found the connect, I could express that connection through my conversations, through my interactions, through my application to the school that I was applying to. It doesn't always have to be about the values, right? It could be about the courses that they offer. So look at their MBA brief profile. Look at the About Us page. Look at the FAQs which talk about especially the admission process. So you know what the deadlines are, you know what the essays are, you know whether or not they accept the Focus Edition score or the Classic Edition score for which round of applications this year, right? And then you also will know who the AdComs are, and then who therefore is likely to be the person that you're going to meet in a particular event. You can check out their LinkedIn profiles. You can check out information on student ambassadors that might be on the school's profile website. And of course, check out the class profile and the placement data. There's a lot of information within a school's website, isn't there? Schools also allow you to download a brochure as a PDF file. And even if, in the website you're not able to get what's the average GMAT score, you might find it in the brochure. So definitely download the brochure. It means giving your email ID to the school, but you're interested in the school, so why not do that? If later on you want to unsubscribe, you can always do that from their mailing list. Couple of other things you can check out. Just Google the school and then check out the news. results just to see if there is anything new happening in the school. Sometimes you may not see it on the website, but the dean is changing. It's something you will pick from Google News. Of course, forums where people talk about their experiences. Ranking websites give you profiles of the school, so websites that give you rankings. And then 2 other good resources are Poets and Quants and Business Because. Business Because is a website run by MBA.com, so they share about schools and this application process and profiles and all of that, as does Poets and Quants. Poets and Quants also has best and brightest MBAs of each year. It has MBAs to watch out for and so on, 40 under 40 professors and so on. So if you're interested in a school and students from that school featured in these columns or professors featured in these columns, there is a Q&A there. So what was their motivation behind applying to that school? That's a lot of information as well. And then you can see whether that's a connect that you are able to form with the school as well. Right? And it doesn't take a lot of time for you to figure this out. For example, just before recording this video, I wanted to demonstrate how much time it takes. So I timed myself and said, let me see in 10 minutes what all information I'm able to find about IE University in Spain, which is participating in the upcoming MBA Tour. At the time of recording this video, it's an upcoming MBA Tour. So within 10 minutes, I was able to download their brochure. I was in the news parts able to find out that in April of this year, they formed an alliance with other European business schools in order to see how they can best sort of put the best minds together to tackle climate change. I was able to find out the class profile and placement data. I was able to check out their FAQ pages and realize that they are asking students to write the GMAT or their own test or the GRE, but there is no information given on whether they are accepting Classic or Focus and for which route. So I'm making a note of it and I'm like, okay, so if I talk to IE University, that's an information that I'm going to seek. So I made a note of that. And there was a lot of information. There were 2 students in 2023, one who featured in Best and Brightest in Poets and Quants, one who featured in MBAs to watch out for, and I was able to glance through their FAQs. There was discussion both in Poets and Quants and in the news section and on their brochure about this new tower campus that they have come up with in Madrid. So there is a lot of talk about this new campus. So this is the first vertical campus for an MBA program. And the brochure had some details about the vertical campus as well. So I was able to get that. So this sounds interesting to me. It's not a widespread campus, it's vertical. How is the student experience in a vertical campus? Now I'm curious about that. And I want to ask an alumni, I want to connect with a student, or I even want to ask with the ADCOM what the students think about their experience of learning in a tower rather than in a spread out campus. So within 10 minutes, I was able to get all of this information about IE, and now I have a bunch of talking points that I have put in my notes that I can bring up in conversation with the ADCOMs during the presentation. Alright, now let's talk about actual day of the event tips, right? The first one is pretty obvious, don't show up in your yoga pants. Especially after COVID and the flex work hours and the work from home culture, people have forgotten, I think, to dress up when an event is around the corner. We still are happy being in casual wear or sports wear all the time. You want to make an impression, then at the very least you must be in business casuals. If it's a webinar or if it's a networking event, business casuals is more than enough. You don't actually have to suit up, but if it's an interview or something more formal, then definitely suit up. Underdressing means you don't care. You can't even take the effort to dress up for the event. If you're not even taking effort on your personal hygiene, school's going to definitely wonder how is this person going to take an effort to do anything with the application process. Right? So, groomed and dressed up. Right? That has to go without saying whenever you go for these events. Alright, tip number 3, be very careful about what you ask the schools. Can't go to the school and ask, do you accept the GMAT? Why? Is that a taboo question? No, it's not. Is it an obvious question? Absolutely. Alright. So ask questions where you can have an interesting conversation. Also, don't ask yes or no questions. Right? Ask questions that can lead to a conversation. So you go up to school and you just ask questions such as, so is your program accredited? What can they say? Yes? No? And then then the ball is back in your court. You have to sort of lead the conversation. So now you have to come up with a second question to ask, right? Instead, if you ask engaging questions, right? So do you have your office in the Tower campus in IE? How do you like the place? Now I'm going to go into an explanation. I'm going to tell you what I like, what I don't like, what is my view like from my floor, is it in the 30th floor, is it in the 35th floor, how convenient is it to go from one place to another within the campus. So much detailing that I can go for. Of course, not everyone is going to go into the same amount of detailing. That's going to depend on how many people are clamoring for their attention at the same time. But asking open-ended questions means that you're at least giving them the chance to decide how long they want to talk. If you just ask yes, no, they're just checking the boxes. Accreditation, yes. Focus edition, yes. Now, next, who else wants to ask what question? There's no connection. You might as well be a faceless person. There's no connect. They're not looking even into your eyes for longer than 5 seconds. Right? So, what to ask? Not the obvious questions. Anything else that is of interest. You can ask profile-specific questions, but I'm going to come to that in just a second. How to ask? Try and avoid yes or no questions. Frame your questions before you go to the event so that they're more open-ended and therefore leaves room for conversation. And follow up. Right? If they say something in the details and you can follow that up with, oh, that's so nice, a 35th floor office, I would love to work, or I would love to, have a classroom that high up, right? Or something, and then you go back and forth and have a polite, interesting, engaging conversation. Look at them when they're talking, right? Don't be too busy scribbling away on your notes, whatever they are answering. To be a little careful about having that engagement while you have the conversation. So that brings me to my fourth point. I said you can ask profile related questions, but the when, where, and how much to ask definitely matters a lot. Let's say you're at a multi-school event like the MBA Tour. You're in the open networking phase. And there are like 10 people around, standing around the school's table, all wanting to talk to that one AdCom director. You can't butt in when someone else is talking. That means you're being rude. So you have to wait, right? So you're waiting, but then other people are waiting, and you're asking questions such as, like, in this essay, what should I write? Do you think the schools are going to tell you what to write in an essay? No. That's up to you. That's what you're being evaluated on, right? Okay, so that's not a question. That's a question not to ask, right? But then you go into, I want to have 7 questions, and I'm going to ask 7 questions. When there are 10 people around me waiting, that's too much. They are going to become impatient. They want to do justice to every person who is interested in the school. They are polite, and they're not going to ask you to stop talking and move away so they can talk to the next person. So most of the AdCom, as long as you're engaging with them, they're going to stay engaged. They might open up the discussion and make eye contact with other people to draw them into the conversation as well, but they're not going to rudely make you stop talking. So you have to be accommodative of other people around you as well. Just like you can't butt in, you can't just make everybody keep waiting as well. So have curated questions, just a couple of them, when you're in that sort of a place. Sometimes schools make presentations. That's the time where they introduce the school, they talk about what the school has to offer, what the program is like, and very generic, broad information to educate you on what the MBA program at the school is like. And then they open it up for Q&A. Now, you want to ask questions they are trying to keep the information as applicable to the entire audience sitting in the room as possible, which means your questions need to be as applicable to the entire audience as possible. So now if you start talking about how you are a commerce student with 5 years of work experience, curious to know how much work experience you need to have, and then with this aspect in your profile, does my CA count as articleship, does my articleship count as full-time experience, and then this and that about your resume and about your manager and specifics of your profile. They will answer you, but they will keep their answer very short, and then everyone around you is getting exasperated as well, because that's an information that's relevant to you, but for no one else, none of the 100 other people who are sitting in the room. What you can do, if you want to ask profile specific questions, for me specifically for this resume, is the school meaningful? If that's what you want to check, you need to sign up for the small group meetings as part of the MBA Tour, which will have 2 to 5 people sitting around with the adcom talking about their profile. That's a place where you can talk about aspects of your resume, not when you have a bunch of people standing around trying to ask generic questions. If it's a webinar or a school or event, and in the webinar you don't have the opportunity to ask these sort of specific questions again, you can always email the adcom and ask those questions. They'll either tell you, look, we can't share that with you, that's the part of our evaluation process, so you do what you want, we don't do resume evaluations, or they will answer your questions. So you take it one-on-one or as close to one-on-one as possible if the question you're not asking is not relevant to the larger audience. Right? So when to ask, where to ask, and how much of the information are you going to ask, how much time are you going to take, really matters a lot. Right? So you need to be as polite as they are and pick those social cues, those conversational cues on whether you can go on or whether you need to step aside. Alright, my last tip, which is the follow-up. Right? Definitely send out a thank you note to the people that you have connected with in these events. Now, there are 2 ways to send a thank you note. Okay, so about a large proportion of people don't bother sending out a thank you note. So there is no recollection that they even met you. Right? Because they're meeting hundreds of people. Why would one name or a face stand out if there is no further follow-up and connection? Then there are people who send thank you notes. It's pretty decent, but all they do is thank. Right? So I met you at the MBA Tour, this was fantastic, I really learned a lot about your business school, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. Now, again, that's like asking a yes or no question. What can they say in response? Right? Either they won't reply because tons of them would have sent this very generic email, or they will say, sure, it was a pleasure to meet you too, and then that's the end of the conversation. You have put an end to the conversation in the way in which you followed up. There is no room for further discussion. Right? Instead, if you can keep the conversation going on email based off of your conversation at the MBA Tour or at the other events, then that is going to be of benefit to you. Then that's good, opening up the doors for them to remember you for a long time. So drop the thank you, say, hey, I met you at the MBA Tour, it was helpful, thank you for the information, When we talked about the student who is from a similar background as mine, who's an Indian engineer with 4 years of work experience in a consulting company. Would you be able to share the contact information of the student? I would love to talk to them, discuss their experiences and see how good a fit someone like me, how good an experience someone like me will find at your business school or something like that. Right? So it has to be relevant to what you actually talked about, has to be a callback to your conversation when you met in person, and it has to be a follow-up question. So thank and follow-up. Now you have opened up the window for a longer conversation. Now they will get back to you with the student details. It doesn't always have to be a student detail, okay? So don't copy paste or just don't treat this video as me dictating an email to you, alright? Be creative, do your own thing. Right? But now they were going to respond with, hey, it was nice to meet you too, I remember our conversation, here's the student details. Now you're going to connect with the student and you're going to say, hey, I met this adcom, they gave me your contact information, I would love to chat with you. And then you set up a call with the student, you chat with them, more information that you get from them. Then you, 10 days later, 2 weeks later, you drop another email to the adcom and you're like, thanks for the info, I was able to connect with the student. Again, a lot of value, I learned about this and this from the student. Now I'm curious about knowing a little bit more about this. So is there someone you can connect me with so that I can learn more? And they actually connected me with this person as well. So other than that, is there any other research that I can do? And so on. And then it keeps going. Don't bug them by emailing them every other day, nor should you just send a thank you and leave it at that. But a couple of rounds of conversation if you can have with someone, then that's fantastic engagement. right? Alright, those are my 5 strategies for you. Do your research about the school so that you can ask more meaningful questions, dress up, and be careful about what questions you ask, right? Don't ask questions that will put them in a spot, like what should I write for this application, nor should you ask very obvious questions. Know when to ask and how much to ask and how long to keep the conversation going in these events. Definitely follow up. Don't make your follow up thank you note too straightforward, but then don't bug them every other day either with an email asking for this and that, right? You have to somehow do your own research as well. Where you are stuck, you can reach out for them and ask them to connect you with the correct person so that you can further your research and further your exploration of the school, right? Okay, so again, where should you apply all of this? In webinars that the school conducts. If you have the opportunity to do an on-campus visit because you live in the area, then you can leverage all of these for the on-campus tours as well. You can leverage all of what we have discussed in any MBA tours as well. We have an MBA tour coming up in India in the next couple of weeks. I think we're about 10 days away from the MBA tours that I'm attending. We're just a week away from the first of the MBA tours. So it's happening in 5 cities. You know the spiel. We have the description box where we have given you all the cities and the start dates, the dates of the events, and of course there is a wizako.in/MBA tour link as well that you can use to sign up for these, right? I'm going to be at the MBA tour as well in Chennai, Mumbai and Bangalore. So if you are in these 3 places, then stop by our table and I'll be able to give you some last minute tips as well and make sure that you have the right confidence and prep going in as you chat with the business school admission committee.